Hey everyone, welcome to SoDA Series Live, a collaboration between the Society of Digital Agencies and Adobe. This series features candid, in-depth conversations with creative leaders shaping our industry, from design to storytelling to emerging technologies. My co-partner on this today is not with me, Tom Beck, the managing director of SoDA. So today I'm flying solo, and I am Talon Wadsworth, principal designer at Adobe, working on emerging technologies and workflows for our creative tooling. But today I am really excited about the conversation that we're going to have. I'm going to be joined by someone who embodies all three of those missions of the SoDA agencies, PJ Pereira. He's the co-founder and creative chairman of Pereira O'Dell, the creative force behind the Emmy-winning Cannes Grand Prix sweeping The Beauty Inside campaign. He's also a best-selling novelist, amazing, martial artist, and one of the most original thinkers in the creative fields today. So today we're going to be diving deep into storytelling in the age of AI, the risks of creative homogenization, and what the next generation of creatives need most. So please help me welcome PJ here to the stage.
Hello, how are you?
Virtual stage. Good. It's great to see you, PJ. Thank you so much for joining us today. I've been really excited for this conversation since we spoke a couple weeks ago. So it's just a pleasure to have you today.
No, my pleasure. Happy to be here.
Right. Well, first, PJ, as we kind of set up this conversation, I really like to kind of have you set the stage for us. So I want to sort of start here kind of with some of your creative journey and kind of things that really drive you. So I want to dive in with the first question today, which is, what was the moment in your career where you realized storytelling could be more powerful than like just traditional advertising?
I don't know if there was a point. I mean, for me, it has always been the process. I mean, I grew up in Brazil, right? In Brazil, being an ad guy is a dream of a lot of people. You grow up. It's like ad the famous ad people before me that inspired me to. They were on talk shows and kind of at night. And I watched them growing up as creative geniuses, making songs and telling stories, and I grew up fascinated by that. And so when I got into the business, it was a natural process for me. The only, in fact, what happened was that I was held back a little bit, and it was because I started as the digital guy in an agencies, and it was harder to tell stories when you're locked into a 12K banner ad, and I was trying to tell stories, but I was limited on the amount of space and time that I had, and it had to be 10 seconds long, whatever. But once the number of pixels and the bandwidth got open, I was like all in. So I don't think I ever had a realization. I always had the impulse, and I was being held back.
Yeah. It definitely seems like the cycle is that there is this kind of era of optimization. Like once the medium has kind of been established, it seems like advertising, marketing overall goes through this period of really optimization. And as you were saying, like this impulse to kind of break out of those form factors. Talk about that creative impulse a little bit, and talk about kind of the opportunities that you were seeing kind of as the digital person sort of starting out kind of inside this larger kind of advertising apparatus.
So there's one of my favorite recent books is that sci-fi series that became a series on Netflix called The Three-Body Problem. And without spoiling much, but there's a race of aliens that live in a universe where they have a very complex solar system that erratically and all of a sudden unpredictably the suns just get too close to the planet, and they all go they have near extinction events. So they split their history in eras of stability and eras of chaos. And eras of chaos, the ones who can they're fast enough and they know how to protect themselves survive, and the ones who and on the areas of stability, people who are good on getting better at things survive, thrive, and do better. I think our industry, because it's so fascinated and driven by the new, it has those moments as well. There are eras of chaos when something big changes and you need to figure out the rules. Like when the internet was born. I started my career when the web arrived. I sent an email to an agency and said, I think that this is going to have something to do with advertising. I got hired and my job was to figure that out. Now with artificial intelligence, if like, okay, there's going to be an impact. No one knows exactly what it is. I have this impulse to figure that out because I'm naturally inclined to eras of chaos, and there are people who are more inclined to find. I need to know what the rules are, and once I have that picture, I can make it incredible. And there are more people are of eras of stability, and they make the craft better. And there's not. I'm not saying that because I'm better. The chaos people are tougher. No,
No.
two different profiles,
Yeah.
and they can do better in different moments. And I think that this is it. I'm right now. I'm as excited as I was in the beginning of my career because I have never seen a shift this big in my life, and I don't think that there has been anything this big in anyone's life. Anyone who's alive has seen anything this big.
Yeah. No, totally. And I think I really resonate with what you were saying, where again, there's this old, adage, in design, you have to know the grid to be able to break the grid. And there is power in kind of understanding the technology or understanding the capabilities and then utilizing that knowledge, that information to then break those paradigms, to kind of push kind of outside of what, say, everyone is doing, and to push visual communication in these new ways with these new technologies.
Yeah, it's imagine that you're there trying to struggle to see, okay, I understand this grid, I want to break the grid, and in the middle of that process, the grid becomes 3D. It's like, okay, there's a new angle to it. It's like, oh my God, how do we do this? And now we have to understand what the grid is again so we can break. Those big moments, they're fascinating, and we're living one of those, and trying to understand what the rules are and what the rule, and when can we break them and when can we apply, and even what exactly is this new scenario that we're playing with. It's very interesting. I think that the difficulty with all the foresight on these things, that the change is compounding. It's very fast, but it compounds as well. So the things that we know, there will be something that's going to happen next week that is going to build on what we have seen, and there will be something on top of it, and because it multiplies itself, it's hard to predict where it's going. Really hard to say, okay, this is where it's going. It's like telling a caveman that fire that he just realized that can be that spirit, that very hot spirit can cook the food. It's like, okay, I can understand it. No, but now we can melt rocks. Oh, that's crazy. But now we can, those rocks, we can mold caves. And you can put a cave on top of each other and make super tall caves, and then put them side by side. You're going to build these incredible tribes. They bigger than anything you can have ever imagined. It's hard to foresee this.
Yeah.
Tell them that these melted rocks are going to build machines, and one of those machines is going to make ice cream. How can something hot build something cold? It doesn't make any sense.
No, it doesn't.
That's what we're doing.
Yeah. And that impulse in sort of pioneering kind of these new formats, these new technologies, and applying that to, and using that to tell stories and to tell, branded stories, it seems that that's the heart of been the heart of your practice. Talk about how that led to the formation of Pereira O'Dell, as an agency, and kind of what your vision was in setting that up, to offering up kind of this new, this way in which you wanted to work and to tell stories and to do work with clients out in the world.
So I started my career as a programmer. That was my first job. I was 13 years old. Worked in technology for 10 years, and then graduated, got into advertising because of this thing that was called the internet. Started my own agency there. Moved to San Francisco to work at AKQA.
Mm.
So in the digital side, so that the beginning of my career was entirely on, first in technology, then on digital advertising. Then when at some point I realized that there was a new generation of agencies being formed that were claiming to do to do both digital and traditional advertising. It's a generation there were agencies like Droga 5, 72 and Sunny, they were coming out, and I looked at that, and I remember talking to Andrew, my partner, and like, look at what's happening here right now. There's this new generation of shops saying that there's this future that is hybrid, but they're all done by people who come from traditional. So this is not a hybrid. This is just a takeover. So unless there's one agency in that generation that is born from people who come from a digital background, there's no legitimacy on that movement. So how about we try to do that? It's like, oh, let's give it a shot. So we started the agency with this idea that there should be a way to combine innovation, storytelling, and the Silicon Valley structure, the Hollywood structure, because we're both in California, and the discipline of marketing from Madison Avenue, and put them all together. For like, this is how Pereira O'Dell was born. And then when the AI world, when I started to write my book that had artificial intelligence characters, and it like 10 years ago, and I started to prepare for the launch of the book, and I started to play with AI, and then generative AI came, and I started to explore that for like, this is going to change advertising again. Just like I had the same feeling that I had when I saw the web. This is going to do it. So we started to create a lab inside of the agency, and started to spin so fast. So it became another agency called Silverside AI, that we created a separate entity that we can allow it to be what it needs to be.
Mm-hmm. And again, your pursuits kind of outside of just advertising are sort of myriad. And you mentioned your book, The Girl from Wudang, where you mentioned like AI. You were thinking about AI and really playing around with it, as a character, and kind of working through those ideas. So what was the interplay, about your kind of previous experience? So starting, as a programmer, kind of coming up in this age of technology and the web, and then seeing these changes happening in real time. Talk about kind of the influences and the interplay of that, both, in writing the novel, and then how it was impacting your work. So just dig a little deeper into that.
So I started to write because I believe that you need every professional creative needs a separate safe pocket where they can be creatives without a client. So all their creative anxiety is at bay. So when you're looking, and when you try to solve a problem, you're trying to solve the client's problem, not your own, right? So I always kept something, either he's writing or fighting, who's also a highly creative activity, or playing with technology and programming, who's also a creative activity. So I always had these separate pockets, like this drawer where I play a different side of me. And when I was working on this book, I had no intention of crossing over. It was just a book, just a story about Kung Fu and artificial intelligence, two exercises of me that I never imagined that were going to have any influence on in the ad world. And as the book was about to be launched, all the predictions that I had been working, not prediction, I wasn't trying to predict anything, but I was thinking about this world that is a near future, that I was planning, and in my head was going to be 30 years from now. All the signs started to happen as I was like 6 months from the launch. I started to see the signs, and Midjourney was born, and all those video AI started to come in the middle of it. And it's like, I'm going to play with it because the book is about it. I'm going to start to do the launch of the book with it. And that's when once I put my hands on it, that's when I realized it was a big accident. And the timing of it was an accident as well. It wasn't planned. I just thought this is going to change the way we create, the way our brains operate on this idea generation process, because I can stay in the flow in ways that I've never experienced before. And I think I'm going to bring it to the agency, and then all of a sudden my creative adventure writing a novel became started to influence the work as well. And I think that happens with everyone that is creative.
Yeah.
Your adventures end up becoming part of you, and you become part of your ideas.
Yeah. It's spooky the way that happens. I've felt that same thing. And there's you as a martial artist, and I've been very kind of obsessed with kind of strength training the last few years. And there was a metaphor that sort of came to mind, or at least an analogy here, where if you work the same muscles in the same way all the time, right, your body gets almost overly optimized on that, and it needs that. Your brain and your body needs that kind of like unexpected or outside of the norm kind of experience. And once you've sort of done that, you're sort of rounding out the capabilities. Like, you're more capable now across all the various exercises or emotions that you might put your body through. And there's something very similar in creativity, I think, that you're speaking to, that if you sort of only sort of put your head down and optimize around this problem for these clients in these ways over and over and over again, you might get really good at that, but then you're lacking in those other skills, those other ways of moving, of operating, of being creative. And when those opportunities arrive, you're not really prepared for that, because you've almost been
you're weak
optimized.
when the opportunity comes. You're weak. You don't have that the chance of making that move. You mentioned the building side, for example. I had, when we did the building side, I had published my first 2 novels at that point, I think. And I remember that at that time, I thought that those novels were just a little adventure, just a little a relaxation process, and everything. But because I had done those, and we had to create in my head, advertising was kind of slotted and was um, constrained to those 30 seconds, maybe a minute, or maybe 2 minutes if you're lucky. And then all of a sudden we were working on a project that was more than an hour long. A piece of content that was more than an hour long. And if I didn't have the training with the novels and my books to write character arcs and write complex stories that cross itself, I wouldn't know what to do. As you say, I'll be weak. It's like having very strong arms, but then I have to kick, and I cannot kick because my legs don't move. And that is, I think that it surprises you. But I have a sense that it's a little bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy as well, that once you start to work on the next muscle, you start to realize that you can do things that you didn't anticipate. And then you create the opportunity because you prepared for it.
Yeah, no, 100%. Actually, that kind of describes like how I ended up at Adobe and really loving it, because I, share a very similar background to you. I was working more kind of in outside studios and agencies, doing a lot of different type of work, which was, I think, why I gravitated towards the studios I worked for, is we weren't just doing, sort of traditional branding, but we were doing interactive work, environmental work. And that really gave me the experience and the toolkit to think with very complex systems. And I sort of found a home kind of at Adobe really unexpectedly, because I was sort of, following kind of this natural progression of my curiosity, and sort of, following along with my mentors and taking on these wide ranging projects. So that definitely resonates with me. You've talked about kind of the storytelling and a little bit about the beauty inside, and some of the things that you discovered along the way. And I wonder if you could maybe just maybe dig a little deeper there and kind of get like, what were those opportunities that you started to see, as you started to integrate, these AI technologies, generative technologies, and what excites you about the opportunities for storytelling as you start to integrate these new capabilities?
Okay, so I may get too theoretical because I don't have an incredible example, because I think this is the quest. But I think the thing that excites me the most
Yeah.
in terms of storytelling and creativity in these new and the years that we have ahead is that we I think that the nature of what an idea is going to change. And
Mm.
right now we think of ideas as one thing. It's a thought that becomes a thing. And I believe that what may happen, an idea on these, like an intelligent idea. So, like I remember in the beginning of the web, we had to realize to discover what an interactive idea was. I think that
Mhm.
we're about to. The next question is what is an intelligent idea is, and I
Mm.
think that an intelligent idea is an idea that will have its own ideas, and that is one of those things that I think that there's something really big hiding behind
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
What is an idea that will create other things? So instead of creating a story, we're creating a universe. It's a good example of this, and that is easy to understand is how video games are evolving and how the non-playing characters they used to have very limited scripts that you go there and you talk to them over and over. They're going to say the same thing. Now they're planning. They're starting to develop those non-playing characters in video games in different ways that they give them a personality, like a thought DNA of sorts. And
Mhm.
when you talk to them, it's a little unpredictable because those characters were going to create their own story. So we are creating an idea that has its own ideas. What is going to be the world of design and storytelling once our ideas have their own?
Yeah, yeah. Well, you know, there's something in there, and I was, been thinking a lot lately about, the responsibility that artists have in explaining their art, right? In a lot of cases, once art is out there into the world, it becomes much more of an interactive, experience, with the audience, right? And the audience now becomes really the owners and the drivers, of that story. The artist played the role as a catalyst, but then it really is up to then the community, the artist, the people who are experiencing it, to then bring out kind of what that says to them. And so the art kind of takes on a life of its own. And I think there's something, I think, connected to what you're saying here, that reminds me of like the communities online, who engage with the video game world, or engage with these other interactive media, as have been in the past, to then develop stories of their own. And then the messages, the metaphors, the characters take on these new lives. And it makes me think that, like, design traditionally, even advertising, has been almost like a one-way engagement, right?
Mhm.
It's the brand just with a big bullhorn, just like speaking outwards, to
Yeah.
its audience, right? And that might be the thing that I think has been maybe falling flat, as people have become sort of so used to that. But they want that, they're looking for that kind of interactivity. And there's something that really, when you were saying, intelligent design, intelligent storytelling that could go out into the world and become much more of a two-way conversation. And then the community becomes kind of the avatars, of those stories kind of
But
out
I
there in the
think
world.
there's an element that is new there, that is
Hmm.
the idea itself is thinking now.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's there's I think that what we are the biggest transition that we're going to have in our mindset, our generation, that I'm 51 years old. I old enough to have a very solidified perspective of how the world is. I try not to, but it is. For me, I'm a tourist on everything that is happening. My son is going to see a different world. My grandkids are probably not going to understand the thought that I have, that intelligence belongs to creatures. I think for our grandkids, intelligence is going to be an attribute of everything. So a table may have a 0 degree of intelligence, but there's a measure. You expect to think, you have to consider how intelligent is everything, and
Hmm.
ideas are not going to be different. What is
Hmm.
an How intelligent is an idea is something that we can project, we can architect, we can design the level of intelligence of an idea. Because maybe I will want this idea to behave exactly the same way every single time, and so I'm designing for intelligence level 0. Maybe
Hmm.
I'm going to build a very core set of constraint elements that will spark, and I'm going to let these idea grow in different ways. We have this thing in the ad world that I think is actually a very pretentious thought, that is the big idea. We are
Yeah.
obsessed with the big idea. I think this is the most pretentious and one of the most dangerous thoughts that we have ever shared, because big is not necessarily a good thing. It's kind of hard to move. It's hard to change. And because of my background in martial arts, I got used to it. There's one of the styles of kung fu that I learned. One of the fundamentals of the things called, there's a form called the little idea. And I remember seeing that. Why is someone proud of building something so special and calling it the little idea, not the big idea?
Yeah.
And my coach, my teacher told me, no, because a little idea is like a seed. You can bring it anywhere, and wherever you go, you plant it, and it grows in a different kind of tree that is still the same species, but it's going to grow based on the light and the format and the ground. And I think that if we start to think of ideas as small seeds instead of these big bravado moments, and we can think about, it's a better metaphor, a better way of talking about ideas, because we can apply intelligence to them and let them see grow anywhere. And I say all this, and I kind of hear myself, and I'm like, I have no idea what I'm talking about here right now.
Yeah. Well, you know, I mean, going on that, right? Like, where again, I was sort of saying before that, you know, advertising being kind of a one-way street, and you have this one opportunity, and so you have to have this idea, this big idea that somehow connects to the audience in all these different vectors. And I think to sort of, you know, kind of bring it to, I think what you're saying in the little idea is that if the idea or the story has the potential to have an awareness, right, as it goes out into the world of the people, the audience, the communities that are interacting with it, that it can change. It can take something from those communities, from those people that it's interacting with, and adapt itself and evolve itself in real time.
And I'll say this: it's actually make things seem a little bit more complicated, but I think it's a blessing.
Yeah,
because the entire discipline of advertising was based on the idea that there's a massive feeling out there in the world.
Yeah.
That feelings are collective and are massive. And now not only the feelings are fragmented, but there's the opposite feelings of anything you pick is usually as big or bigger than the feeling that you did. So I was raised with this idea, raised professionally with this idea that, you know, you have to find the enemy, and once you find something that an idea can be hated, then that's when it can get loved. And that's fine when the love is much bigger than the hate. But what happens when you spark love and hate is 10 times bigger than the love? Then it gets the world becomes very dangerous. And an idea if you find ways to create ideas that can mold and adjust so it can adapt to the feeling of the person he's talking to, it can be a very very interesting way of thinking.
Yeah, I agree. There's something in there that maybe then there's I love the questions. Actually, by the way, I forgot to mention at the top of the show, we've got the audience out there on LinkedIn. Hello, everyone. Please chime in. Our colleague Kendall will be out there collecting some questions. And I've actually had a couple, I think, to start to sort of maybe dig into a little bit more of the role of the designer, of the human, you know, in creating, you know, these stories that then go out there into the world to activate sometimes, you know, these sometimes opposite feelings. And so Hemanth in the chat, he asked, you know, with AI playing a major role in as we go forward in design, where's the human in all of that? What's the human involvement as we send these things out into the world to activate, you know, with these different emotions and ideas and feelings out there in the world?
I think this is a fundamental question that, you know, I can make my best prediction. It's hard to tell what the ice cream is going to be coming out of that, like the thing we were talking in the beginning. But my current understanding, but based on my current experiences, is this: we humans we are very good at identifying patterns. That's how we learn. We identify the patterns, and then as creative minds, we feel like look at anyone that is listening here that probably be seen was seen as a creative kid when they're young, and then you can tell a creative kid usually someone that first identifies patterns in life very quickly. Two, you have no fear of thinking of breaking that pattern. And three, you have no shame of letting those ideas out. So identifying the pattern is the beginning of it, and then this impulse to break the pattern is the second step, and the third part is I don't care about having kind of putting those words out there. Now look at what's happening in the world. We have a machine that is better than us at identifying patterns. If we tell it the pattern should be breaking the pattern, it will go there, and it has no fear, doesn't even understand the concept of fear. So we're going to need to grapple with something that plays in what we call creativity. What is our role in the creative process is going to be very different. And I think that it has to do with this cat and mouse game of identifying the pattern and breaking the pattern. I think our impulse, we can win on the impulse to break the pattern. On the identifying and being fearless, I think we're going to lose. But on the impulse and the intention, we can win. And I'll give you an example. When I started to play in the beginning of the year, I started to play with Google VO2 and playing, kind of doing generating images and everything. And it was fascinating, but I want a middle class American home and kind of drive by middle, like a neighborhood. And it was incredible. And I did a couple of those things. And after I did 4 or 5, I felt like, oh, the houses kind of look the same. Mm-hmm. Now that the tool is available for everyone, because I was playing the beta version, now every time I see a house, I can see that's the freaking house.
Yeah.
Every house is the same. So unless I go there and I decide, okay, I can see the pattern, I'm going to determine that I don't want that house. I want a house that is yellow, that is taller, is skinny, and is tilted. Because for my story, that's important. Mm-hmm. So when you recognize a pattern, you start to get bored, you go there and find it. Eventually, the computers are going to catch up, and they're going to feel like, oh, the houses need to be different, so otherwise people get bored. And then you're going to find the next pattern, and you're going to our role in the creative process, I think the next 5 years at least, is going to be being ahead of the machines on being bored. Our talent for being bored is more important than ever. It's taste, and it's culture, it's vision, and it's boredom.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that hits me really hard. I think it resonates with a lot of things that I believe, and I think there's this way in which the human as the sort of creative director and bringing to bear taste and sort of building on boredom, getting very bored with those same old patterns. That there's this very the best creators always approach their work in a very intentional way. As you said, the height of the house is representative of something about the story or something about the character who lives within the house, right? And that context, that intent of the creative behind the tool seems to, again, we're maybe opening the door for more people to take advantage of that way of working, of using the tool in these intentional ways to bring to bear taste or context or culture, right? And to inform meaning, through these new capabilities, these new potential of the tools.
Yeah, I mean, the for me, the biggest challenge that we're going to have as creatives is to realize what our intentions really are. Mm-hmm. Because when you're in the flow, you're just doing things and you're not thinking about them. But we need to develop the skill of thinking about our own thinking, about understanding what we're trying to get, so we can voice it, we can explain. It's like when you're a creative director and telling your junior creative that's what you want it to do. And you have to give very clear instructions. Otherwise, he or she may go in a direction that you don't want, but you want to give it enough space so there's some surprise, and you're gonna see something that you wouldn't see, you're not expecting. I think that our relationship with these creative machines I think I may receive death threats for saying creative machines, but I'm treating that with a big asterisk, right? And I don't necessarily mean it, but with these kind of machines, you're playing our creative field. Our ability to explain, to think about our thinking, to realize what's going on and voicing it's really important. One of my best tricks, my favorite tricks right now is I call reverse prompting. Instead of prompting the AI to do something for me, I explain to the machine exactly the process and how I'm going to think. And I say, okay, now you prompt me. And now I can just forget the steps, be completely in the flow. And the machine tells me, okay, the script that you just give me the script, and I'll give you the script. Okay, and now, okay, I just broke these into these scenes. Is that right? Yeah. So how about you add a scene here, like here with this, I think is going to work better with what you intention. You didn't get it right. That's not what, and I have this conversation. I'm kind of doing these reverse prompting that the machine prompts me instead of me prompting the machine, which allows me to stay in the flow. And I think that as a creative person, that is way more fulfilling, because I think that creativity, our job and what we do is not a task, is a need. I got in one of my book launches once, and someone, because of the theme of the book, someone asked me if I will ever consider having AI write my books, because she wouldn't want to read a book that was written by AI. And I promised her, listen, I cannot promise you that there will be no books written by AI, but I promise you that my books will never be, because I don't write because I need to put a product on the shelves. I write because I have something inside of me that is going to explode if I don't. So I can guarantee that I'm going to write forever, and I'm going to write my own thing. I can ask an AI to tell me if that was well written, if there's any suggestion that it has, and I may use some of the suggestions. I may ignore most of them, but it needs to feel that is mine. As an artist, I need that feeling. And I think that every creative, for as much as we talk about the dangers of AI copying the styles and nothing being original anymore, when you go sit down and do the work, when you get down together with other people who are creative minds and they're actually trying to do, not people just following a trend of using Studio Ghibli or Simpsonizing things. When you talk to real professional creatives, with artists and people who take pride on their ideas, when the moment they sit down, they're not trying. They may ask, okay, do this in a Wes Anderson style, just for the giggles, just to see how it goes. But once you understand that that's it, the next step is, I want to make it mine. And the creative impulse is stronger than us. And I think that we are worrying more with the creative integrity of our community than we should, because our creative impulses are too strong to be ignored. And I trust, I'm too optimistic and too Pollyanna sometimes, but I trust that our creative impulses are going to be the guardians of our ethical direction as well.
Well, that makes me think about something I heard the other day, and I think it gets to some of your thoughts about, so the homogenization, we'll say, of design, where when we're talking about the anxiety that we as creatives have around these tools, is that anxiety actually misplaced? And is the anxiety actually more so the homogenization that is being required by these platforms that are now controlling kind of the means of communication, right? The ways in which people consume information, right? I just want to get your take on that, right? Which is, because I'm with you in terms of the use of tools, that the tools themselves are neutral. But really, there are now these giant tech platforms that have become, again, revenue generators for individuals, right? But they they define the contours of what is successful or not on their platforms. And I wonder maybe if you could just sort of take a shot at that for a second.
So I'm going to sound a little crazy here because I am totally okay with having opposite beliefs, the conflicting beliefs. So at the same time, I think that the birth of artificial intelligence is one of the most liberating things on the creative field, but is also can be one of the most, but it's also one of the most damaging things on the creative field. So I'm capable of operating with those two things at once. So I'm not contradicting myself, as I don't believe any of the things that I've said. I'm just going at the same time. I think that there is the companies they're making money out of this. They have a responsibility that is bigger than the artist working on it. I mean, as a creative person, my ethical limits is that my actual ethical direction is that once I'm using those things, those tools, I actively work for both my personal fulfillment and because I respect the craft of other artists out there. I really work on not using prompts there. I want to do this in the style of that one person, right? Unless I'm combining multiple things that I can honestly feel that are very different from anything that I know, right? I mean, when I talk to directors and we're doing a film, they usually come, I want to do a light like this one, a dance like the other. So we are, as creatives, we come with references and we try to build new things. When I feel like I'm building new things out of references, I feel comfortable with myself and I feel respectful with my community. I think it's very different when you're talking about a technology company that is profiting from what is learning out in the world. It's not very clear to me what are the limits of that, what is learning, what is copying, what is fair use, what is not. I'm watching it very closely. I think I need to listen to more philosophers thinking about this, not just the creatives. I think there's a discussion. Unfortunately, maturing those thoughts is a process that is way longer than the technology is doing. But I'm paying attention. I think everyone should be paying attention. But if we're one of those companies that is selling these tools, selling these hours, selling those credits, you are the one who has the obligation to think about the ethical limits and the process of that, and the how you guardrail that as well, because there's a one complicated aspect of it that is that may sound a little bit elitist, but bear with me for a second. That is, there's a difference between a regular person and a creative professional in terms of how they use the tools, right? For example, if I try to use any generation, any AI, generative AI tool to create a horror movie right now, I can't, because it will just refuse to put blood. I would have to say, put this person with ketchup on their shirt. I'm going to need to find ways to hack the system to actually do the things that I want. But how can we build towards something that is a real storytelling tool if the tools are limiting the kind of stories that we're going to tell? But if we open it, then people are going to do very bad things. But this is something we as a society are going to need to come to terms with. And once we're democratizing the expression of ideas. And the responsible part of me feels like this is very dangerous. The revolutionary side of me, the rule breaker side of me, feel like, screw that. Now, this is the pure thought that only a few people should have access to something is very elitist. And I don't think that I believe that. I don't think that's a good idea. So I'm struggling and I'm comfortable with the struggle. And I don't think the struggle is going to disappear in the next decade. Yeah. And I think that anyone that thinks that they have a very clear opinion about that, is very sharp and black and white, probably haven't thought about these things enough and hasn't used those things enough to understand how the reality is from the inside. And
Yeah.
and it's possible. Maybe I'm wrong, and I'm okay with being wrong, and I'm fine. But I'll say the only thing that I'll ask is anyone that is completely for or completely against to listen and try the other side. See what happens when the world is stealing your technique, and now you don't, you became a cliche, or the other way around. You think that this is evil, that is bastardizing every style. Go there and try to use it to see how you and the other people trying that in the community, they're not actually trying to mimic everything. These are just for the amateurs. This is just for the giggles. It's like fan fiction.
Yeah.
Fan fiction didn't kill fiction.
Yeah.
Right? You can even argue that it made fiction bigger.
Yeah, very true. Before I had a question, I just want to keep going this, but we had a couple of questions from the community. I want to make sure that we hit. Laura asked one, and this is going to take us just back here a minute, but how she was wondering, how do you maintain artistic integrity while also utilizing AI as a tool? And I think you touched on this a little bit, as we've had this discussion, but I wonder if you could just kind of like bring that a little more into focus, how you think about artistic integrity, as you're utilizing these tools.
I think that for me as an individual, it's less of a problem than it seems to be. I think this is a monster that is more real from the outside than the inside. As an individual, I don't have. I feel like I'm good. My creative integrity comes from my need to create something that I feel that is mine. And therefore, I'm actually always trying that I think that is original, that I'm trying to break the cycle. So my own personal integrity, I think it's protected by the impulse, the creative impulse by itself. Mm-hmm. As a community, as an industry, and as a person who has a voice that has the luxury of giving interviews, I'd say that the pursuit of that integrity comes from sharing this thought that you need to use these tools to search for your own voice, not to replicate what is out there, which basically means that the most micro level is that once you're going to prompt things, be specific, bring your ideas. Don't say, I want a girl with a lollipop and a balloon. Tell who is that girl? How does she look? Why does she feel? What is the dress look like? What is the background? How do you want this to feel? Spend time thinking about what you're seeing, the image that is in your head, vocalize that. Then the integrity comes as a natural process of that. And when you see it, keep moving, keep the ball rolling. The integrity comes from actually working hard on putting your vision to life instead of just treating AI as you treat Google. I think this is actually the problem. That people see AI as one big field and an OK button, and they type something and they expect that the prompt is going to be prompt, is an answer, which is not. I think that we should be directing AI, not prompting AI.
Yeah. That's a great statement. Do you think that there are opportunities, in formats of, the communication, the AI opens up, it kind of breaks us free, kind of like maybe even of the algorithms to sort of dictate a lot of, what visual communication means today? Like, will AI open up new opportunities, in the ways in which, we tell stories, again, things that push beyond kind of where we're at right now?
I think we are going to see. There's a wild prediction, but I think we're going back to I'll go back to the intelligent ideas thing. I think that we're going to see ideas that have their own ideas at some point. We're going to start to create visual systems that will make decisions by itself on what is appropriate, what's not, what's on brand, what is not, what's part of this, and how does it adjust to it. And I think that the opportunity of creating rules, not executions, from an intellectual standpoint, I feel very rewarding. You create the executions and you see, okay, I love these and I hate those, and you start to see all the possibilities. You start to understand the rules, and you distill things down to the core. Design is a distillation process. You do all those things differently, but actually that's what it is. Those 5 different rules. It's these colors, these shapes with these things. They combine. This is how they don't, right? And establish those limits. Now you have a system. Now you can actually imagine that you're actually creating a design system that is alive, that will understand your intentions, is going to do it. It's not going to be, you're not going to be developing a design system for a food chain that's a manager on the mall somewhere is going to bastardize, is going to destroy it because it has no taste and it's going to do something horrible, and your entire system is gone. No, at that manager at the mall store restaurant is going to have a design system that is intelligent enough to say, okay, that's what you need. Here's what it is. We are going to be protected. We're going to be protected from mediocrity. We're going to be protected by craziness and bad taste. I hope so. But
I'm with you.
Sure.
Yeah. It reminds me of this one of the first experiments I did in utilizing parameters or rules as the driver of brand graphics for YBCA in San Francisco. Actually, there was this.
You remember when web design became liquid, right? Okay, now it's liquid design, so you put the screen bigger, and then you have to think the design that works in a wide screen, a small screen. I think this is like liquid on steroids. Maybe
I
it's
totally agree.
Maybe it's vapor design.
And you're right. It really comes down to like you said, like the sort of the application of the thing is where those early takes on those kind of liquid brand systems started to fall down, right? Because it really relied on the expertise of the person who's applying it. But if the brand itself can be self-generating and kind of maintain that rule set kind of based on the creative direction, the taste, the skills like of the creative who's defining it, then its application can be much more successful and impactful, within that system.
There's one of the conundrums that this thing may actually help us with is that we as marketers, not just on the creative side, but the whole marketing community tends to get bored with the whole thing about boredom again, bored before the world feels. So how many times I've seen get into a client and the client say, no, this is our old campaign. We need to redo it. It's been 3 years that we've been doing this. 3 years, the regular world is just starting to finally get acquainted to that thought and get used to it. And now you have to break it just because you're bored. And because machines don't get bored as well as we do, they may be able to sustain that level, those executions a little bit longer and let them mature a little bit longer without our anxiety for change the whole time. So we'd like to think as creative beings that change is always good, that reinvention is always good, that the creative process needs to be ongoing. But sometimes you actually need to let things think and develop roots. That seed needs to establish roots before it can actually stand on its own, right? And that may help us do that because the machine is doing that. We're not just stuck on that cycle of doing the same thing over and over. And we can look at that with fresh eyes.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that's a great sort of summation of that. One question I wanted to get to, because Gaurav had this question, I wanted to make sure we got it out there. What are some don'ts while adapting AI into your creative process? What are some things that we should be steering very clear of when we start to adapt our process?
The easy answer to that is don't copy someone else's style. But there's an honesty. It's hard to legislate about that, right? But I think that as a creative industry, we can trust our instincts. It's like, I do feel that you're creating something here. You're combining things here they're inventing something new. And that is the easy one. I think that the other don't that I learned here in the real world is don't plan long projects. Time is we have always complained that we never have time enough for things, right? How many times a week you hear a creative complaint, but that's not enough time for this. Listen, in this world, time is your enemy. You actually want to do, if you have been working on something for a month, you should be panicking because you have been using a technology that may be about to get old. So you need to get that out before it becomes a trend.
Yeah.
You know?
That's great advice. And I think that's a great place to end our conversation today. PJ, again, we've covered so much ground today, and just the curiosity and the passion with which you approach your work. I just wanted to thank you for that and everything you brought to our conversation today. And again, I could continue talking to you about this for hours, and maybe we'll get a chance again soon to dive deeper into your explorations as we all navigate.
It was my pleasure. Glad to be here. The series is incredible, and the SoDA community is one of the most exciting and important powers in our industry. Kind of glad to be here. Thank you for the invite, and I'm glad I'm not seeing the comments in real time because they probably say that I'm crazy. But so I promise this is just a little bit more cuckoo than my normal self.
No, you gave us, I think, I gave the community, I think, a lot of things to think about and to try in a fearless way, which I think can be, again, things to help give us courage, as we go forward into this world. So thank you so much, PJ.
Awesome. My pleasure.
All right. And thank you everyone who joined us today in the chat. Again, it's so great to sort of have you here with us and being part of the conversation. And please don't hesitate to reach out to any of the SoDA community, here on LinkedIn. We're looking forward to hearing your feedback on the series, and please go check out our podcast feed on any of your favorite podcast platforms. Check us out there. We'll be back next month with another conversation. And this episode today, of course, will be archived here on LinkedIn. Will also then be on the podcast feed in just a couple of weeks. So thank you all, and I look forward to seeing you all back next month.